Welcome back to Legends of Ivy Point Road, the show where we celebrate the untold stories of men and women who have shaped drag racing with nothing but raw passion and blind ambition. Today we have some true pioneers in the hot seat, Tucker and Judy Parrish. How y'all doing today?
We are great.
Tucker, you got to tell me, you were there in the beginning before Christmas trees, timers, and burnouts. What's your earliest memories of Union Hill?
Well, I was 9 years old. I had a first cousin by the name of Jimmy Spate. Had a 57 Chevrolet called the Red Arm. He let me go to the races with him to watch, and I was totally amazed because I'd never seen anything like this before. And the weeks following, after my first win, I started trying to figure out exactly what was going on at 9 years old, and all I wanted to do was be excited.
Right.
And I took and aggravated or whatever bothered him every week. Can I go to the races with you or whatever?
Now, did he race too? Was he racing?
He raced the 57 Chevrolet.
And this was who?
Jimmy Spate.
Jimmy Spate.
The car was called Red Arm. It was painted red and iron, I guess, because there wasn't no fiberglass in them days. But
Do you remember how they categorized what class he ran in?
he ran D-gas with that car because, as best I can remember, he had the front bumper off, and that's about the only way you could tell the difference in a stocker and a gasser in those days. They had them a little camshaft or something other, and if they took the front bumper off, they wasn't a stocker.
They wasn't a stocker no more. When you went through with a stock car, they had like 3 different classes that they...
No, there was probably, 10, 15 classes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. They classified you by the type car you had, factory rated horsepower.
Oh, okay.
Versus the shipping weight of that car. And like the littler motor and the heavier car was in the lower classes. The lighter car with the big motors, we'll just call them A-stockers. They were the top of the line, and the 6 cylinders were the, they were the bottom. We'll just call them the Z. I don't think there was a Z, but that's the way they were classified.
How much money could you win back then?
The stock classes all were called, after time trials, they all were called back with each other. If, for example, you had a B-stocker and I had a B-stocker, we had to race each other. Only one came back. If there was more than one, then he had to run everybody else in the class till you had down to one car. That class was over with until they called for eliminator. Then all of your class winners came back and ran each other for the different eliminators. There was 3 eliminators. There was an A, a B, and a C. And they were grouped into the bottom eliminator had the slower classes, the middle had the middle classes, the top had the top classes.
All this was done by a flagman in the beginning.
Yes.
So,
go ahead.
so with the flagman out there, how'd they spot everybody? Did he just drop one flag and another flag? Or?
Normally, once they called them back and you were running what we call the eliminator, they spotted them by car lengths. If you were in an A stock and I was in a B stock, they put me a car length out in front of you. The flagman moved out in front of me. He flagged us.
So if it was 2 car lengths or 3 car lengths, he would just keep moving down. He'd just drop the flags and I guess run for his life.
And I can't remember for sure, but best I can recollect it, I don't know if there was a breaking point where it dropped off to say half a car length. Because if a lot there, you could get so far down there, the fast car might not could see the flag.
Exactly.
But it was based off of car lengths. Car lengths, half a car lengths, or whatever like that,
How old were you when you started racing?
When I started, my first time to drive, I was 15. And I had already got to watch a lot coming up and watching.
So being 15, how'd you get the car there?
I was, I guess you'd say, in partners with a gentleman. He was personal friend of mine. We went to school together, Cliff Stevens.
Yeah, what car was that?
That was a red and white 56 2-door hardtop with a 265 in it. And the name on the side was the Little Squirt.
So what tricks did drivers or people have up their sleeve back then to go fast or win a race?
We're getting real close to, I'm thinking 65, we may have already had lights to start off of. The flagman went away with pretty fast.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, if you think back on it, you didn't think of it as much knowing it then. You learn it over the years. It's kind of like what we call today reaction time.
Right.
You needed to get away from the starting line. Don't sit there and wait for the green light to be on, you know.
I've seen some documentaries where when the tree came into the play, a lot of drivers didn't like it at first.
Right. You know,
especially the faster car, because both of them being at the same spot. When the faster car took off, he already had a running shot to catch this guy.
That anytime you spotted by the car lengths and stuff, the fast car had an advantage. I mean, you're taking off at the same time. Therefore, he's gaining ground a whole lot quicker than you are in the slow car. So he would be on you quick.
From those documentaries I've watched, they seem like the crowd really liked that, because they would see that one car take off and then they'd see the faster car really catch him on the other end.
Well, I think you'll agree that drag racing is very hard to understand for a spectator.
Oh, yes.
They don't understand, like today's racing, they don't understand you getting there first and lose.
Yeah.
They don't understand that you have to handicap yourself. You know?
Yeah. I explained it to my wife, bracket racing, and she in the end, she was like, so you're trying to tell me I could go up there in my minivan and race you in this car, my yellow car? She's like, why'd you spend so much money on that yellow car when I could go up there and race you in my minivan?
And that's your ego.
Yeah.
That's your ego to go fast. You probably remember a few years back, because you were already racing then, I went away for quite some time with one of the most successful cars I ever had, and I had a GM crate motor in it.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember the
Corvette.
yeah.
Corvette won a lot of races, won a lot of point championships.
And that thing, it was like a 710, 724.
Probably the fastest it ever went, you know, with the first crate motor. Of course, I wore it out and put another one in it. But the first one, probably, I'm going to guess it at fast side of on 8 mile, 7:05 on a real good, cool, crisp night, because it was on gas and air made a lot of difference.
Yeah.
To a slow night when it's July or August and it's 100 in the shade, it probably went 720, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When I first fixed that car, Super Pro and Pro, which is the same way we know them now, they didn't let anybody run at any ET. They had an ET brake.
Yeah.
Like everything in Super Pro was 749 and faster. 749 up to 850 was Pro. You could, of course, I put it, the promoters were getting hungry, so they let you run both classes if you wanted to. They didn't care as long as you paid for the tech cards at the front gate. I had the Corvette. Luckily, it worked out what we planned for it to do. I had a 750 double pumper carburetor on it. I could run Super Pro because, like I say, it would go 720, 30, whatever, you know. And I could come right back and pull one carter key out of linkage and put it on a 2-barrel and only use half the carburetor, and it'd run 750. I could run both classes and wasn't having to do a lot of driving myself. The car was actually speeding up and slowing down. There was usually 28 hundredths difference in the 2-barrel and the 4-barrel.
Oh, wow.
I was thinking Super Pro up there at Crossville, you had to be 699, I think.
Every track had a different brake.
Yep,
you know.
because I remember going up there with a wagon, it wouldn't go 699, and I'd dial it, but about halfway through the night and the air got good, it'd go at 699. I'd give up a little bit on the tree.
And like I say, every track had, the Music City track had so many classes and all.
Yeah.
You had a lot of different things you could do.
Yeah.
The Greenfields, when they promoted the track, they're probably the first ones that I ever can remember that would let a driver run 2 classes or 2 cars in the same class. And I probably instigated some of that because I went to Doug Greenfield and asked him if I could race 2 cars in the same class.
Yeah.
He studied it a while and told me he would let me do that. But he would not wait for me.
You know, yeah. If you wasn't,
You're responsible for being ready to race whenever they call you out.
Yeah.
And the only time that would get tricky is if I was fortunate enough to still have 2 cars in late rounds. Because I would get me somebody. You maybe, for example, your car was broke. I need you to put a car in line for me. And I would be with 1 car in the first 4 or 5 pair at the front of the line. I'd have another car, 4 or 5. I wouldn't have to necessarily be the back. I didn't like being the back because you might have to run the by-run car. Then I never liked that. So I would try to get it in the last 4 or 5 pair.
Yeah.
I would drive the front car back to the staging lanes. Whoever was helping me would have the other car keep moving it up in line. Wherever they were sitting in the staging lanes, I would stop beside of the staging lanes outside of the fence. I would go get that car. They would take the car I just ran, took it back to the trailer, fuel it, and get it ready for next round. It took 2 people that would, and you had to be careful to get somebody that understood how important this was to keep the cars separated, fueled, and ready to go. If not, you got both cars sitting in the back of the line. You know?
Well, Judy, how did you meet Tucker?
Well, I met him at the Crystal in Madison. I was still in high school, and he was too. In my school days, we had this guy that unfortunately had burned down to our high school. So we had to go to another school. Well, they burned that one down too. So the only place we had to go was...
He burned the school down?
He burned the school down, 2 of them.
2 of them.
Did he get caught?
Yeah.
Finally. But
he didn't like going to school, did he?
No, he
didn't. They get him in this one. He's like, well, we're gonna go over this one. We're gonna go ahead and burn this one down too.
So a group of us girls that went to school together, we had to have a ride to get back for school. So every week we would kind of swap up. We would borrow our mom and daddy's car, and there would be like 5 of us drive to school every day.
This was when carpooling wasn't carpooling.
That's right. So we didn't have to go to school until we had to split our shifts up with Madison High School and DuPont High School. So Madison went early in the morning, and we went in the afternoons to school. So every day before we went to school, we went to the Madison Crystal.
Was that lunch or breakfast?
Well, we ate lunch.
Okay.
Yeah. We ate lunch before we went to school. So we just happened to be in there that day, and all of a sudden we look up, and Tucker and Lonnie Garner and Dee Dee Fuller, and I don't know, there was 4 or 5 of them. Well, they were skipping school that day.
Now, I've heard those names before, so yeah, it kind of like...
We were on our way to school, so, I just kind of met him, and I thought, oh, he's kind of a cute guy. So, and 2 or 3 days later, Tisa got back with me and my friend I was with, and she said she was dating Lonnie. And she said, oh, we're all going out next weekend. Said, I'm trying to set you and up with one of these guys. She said, would you go out with Tucker? I said, yeah, I guess. I said, he's kind of a cute guy. She said, well, I'm getting Dee Dee set up with Sandy. I said, well, that's okay. Well, she did. She got all that set up. She told Dee Dee what she was doing, and Dee Dee said, no, I don't want to go out with Sandy. I want to go out with Judy. And she said, no, you can't do that, because I've already
She done made the plans.
I've already made the deal. He said, well, we can just flip a coin. And she said, no, we're not flipping a coin. I've already done it. This is it. So that's how we got into that. It's the first time I ever laid eyes on it. So we went out on our date. We had a great time, and we've been together ever since.
Well, Judy, what's your earliest memories of the Hill that you like?
Well, after the first date me and Tucker had, of course, we had several dates after that, but we went to the Hill in a 1956 blue and silver Chevrolet.
56.
56.
What was that? Was that about 65?
No, it was later than that. It was in 68.
Oh, was it really? Was it that? Well, that could have been right then.
Yeah, 68.
Yeah, I remember the car.
Yeah.
She does too.
Yeah.
I love that old car.
Yeah.
It had a big block 4-speed.
Yeah, sure did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Motor come out of a Corvette, didn't it?
sure did.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever work at Union Hill?
Oh, yes. Many years I worked at Union Hill.
What was your job?
I worked at the end of the track in what I would call like the ET booth. And that was back in the day. You didn't have all these printers. You didn't have.
Nope, you had the little old card.
Had a little card, looked like a little business card. And
Sometimes you put the 60 foot on it, you put the time, and you draw a little happy face on it.
A little smiley face if you won.
If you won.
If you won.
If you didn't, it had the frown.
It had a little frowny face on there. Yeah.
I got many of them.
And I had a lot of help down there. Mary Sue Wolf, she worked with me. Melanie Vaughn worked down there. Pam Perry worked down there. And it took two of us because one of us would have to be, we kind of swap it up. One of us would be writing all this information down, and then the other one would be handing the cards out. So it'd get kind of busy down there from time to time. But at the time, we had an announcer there, and his name was Stig Shepard. And his wife, Mildred, worked in the tower with him. Now, before the races started, Mildred would drop those little business cards, like little ET cards, down like a little chute. And you had to go up to the timing tower to pick up your card just to find out how fast you had been, you know. And when the races started, then it went to us at the lower end of the track. So Stig, sometimes he would do a really, really good job. But then sometimes he would just get off sidetracked. And he'd be talking about some of the race car coming around to get in the water box. And we'd have two cars going down through there. And then he wouldn't tell us anything. And we'd be sitting down there thinking, well, who just won that race?
Yeah, unless he announced it, you couldn't write it down.
No, I mean, we didn't know. And all we had was it was like an intercom system down there. And then we'd be calling back to him saying, Stig, you're going to have to straighten up. Who won that race? And then he'd say, oh, wait a minute, you know. And then he'd have to give us the ETs and who won, who lost. And we'd always kind of keep an eye on that win light down there. So we kind of know who won, but we didn't know any numbers. And then if we had somebody pulled up and we didn't have that card right, then they were upset at us because we didn't have it.
Like you didn't get that.
And it wasn't our fault to begin with, you know. But it all worked out in the end. Usually we could pretty well get everything straightened out. Or sometimes we'd say, okay, Stig didn't tell us nothing, just go to the tower.
Let's go to the tower.
Just go to the tower.
Well, growing up as a kid at Union Hill, my brother and I, we've made some lifelong friends. And your son, Chris, is definitely one of them. I can remember the first time that we came out here, we were trying to conquer a tree out there. We came out here to build models over the week. I'd go home on Saturday night, and then the next week we went to the hill. We would come back, so we'd spend the whole week here. And I remember him, we was trying to conquer that tree, and he fell out and he broke his arm. The next morning, cast and all, he was still back in there. We was building models. It didn't even
Well, and in fact, he did that. We took him to the emergency room. They set that arm, the cast and all that. And then I had to take him back, and they had to re-break his arm because they didn't set it correctly. Mm-hmm. So, and it was really funny because it was, the doctor said, well, you know, we have two choices. We can either put you in the hospital and put you to sleep and re-break this arm, or I can break it right here in the doctor's office. And Chris, you know, you and Chris probably were 7, 8, 9 years old.
Yeah,
you were small.
We were small.
And Chris looks at that doctor and said, well, you know, I've heard the food at that hospital's not so good, so why don't you just break it right now? And the doctor looked at me and said, Mom, I think you need to go out in the waiting room. And then all of a sudden I hear Chris back there saying, I heard it pop. And that doctor said, no, that was my arm. And so he re-broke his arm. He deadened it. Yeah. And then he re-broke his arm while we were in the doctor's office.
Tucker, what was your first stock or super stock car you owned? Or was it a stock car or a super stock?
Well, it's kind of where you want to go. If we're going to go back in the 60s again, we had, of course, didn't have stock and super stock.
Yeah.
Then we had, like we described a while ago, the stocker. Probably the first one I owned was a 67 Corvette, big block 4-speed car that I ran C pure stock with. And I drove it on the street also. I had that car when Judy and I got married, along with the 56, which is big block 4-speed. And I had a 63 Impala convertible. I let that be her car whenever we got married.
Wow.
And the Corvette was very good, pure stocker. And I won a lot with that car. But now if you're going to move out of the 60s and into the 70s, probably the first super stock car that I drove in the early 70s would have belonged to Jimmy Bridges. I drove for him.
The wagon?
The first one probably was the 65 Chevelle wagon that he already owned at that time. And it later, Michael Lynch drove it. There's several people drove that.
Sloan and them wound up with.
Sloan Brothers, and they had it for a while.
Yeah.
Then Jimmy had the 65 two-door hardtop car with a 283 in it, and he also had a 64 two-door post car.
Yep.
I drove one of them most of the time, the post car, because he was pretty partial to the hardtop car.
Yeah.
Until I can't tell you exactly what years in the earlier years. I guess we wanted more money. The tracks wanted more money. We started running 2 rounds. In other words, everybody would run around and the winner keep coming back till you were down to 2 cars. And then everybody that had been beat would come back for what they call second round. Well, Jimmy was sharp enough that if we were ever lucky, and we weren't a lot, but we were some, if we could put his 2 cars in the finals, we made sure that the slowest one of them won. So we'd have the fast car to come back to run second round. So that was always the plan, you know.
Yep. Y'all had a convertible too, did you?
Had a 65 convertible. It was then you ran off national records, and records were getting set pretty regular. I mean, Superstock was coming along fast, and you'd get a guy over in Carolinas or somewhere with, we always called it mine shaft conditions, where they'd blow the record out of the water.
Yeah.
You know, and then you had to run off that handicap.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it is today where it's indexed they're based off of. We ran off somebody's national record.
Yeah.
And so therefore he had, I was just along for the ride. He had several bodies. We could switch bodies every time somebody blow the record out. We could switch, put the same running gear in another body to run a different class. So that we didn't have to run off that record.
Never did do a 4-door Chevelle though, did you?
Can't remember us doing a 4-doors other than in the wagons.
Yeah.
It's only 4
You drove a 4-door Chevelle car, didn't you? Turquoise? Did you have one at one time?
I drove one I had a 4-door turquoise. I drove on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all wondered about
my work car. That's what I drove that for. I finally, for the longest, I had ramp trucks, and we'd take 1-ton trucks and cut them in 2 and stretch them to where we could haul cars on the back of them. And
Cordell do all them.
Huh?
Cordell do most of them.
Most all of them. Cordell Anglia did.
Yeah.
He was real sharp at it. Well, I wasn't fortunate enough to be able to afford the ramp truck and a ride to work, so I had to drive my ramp truck to work.
Wow.
And in the parking lot, there wasn't but 2 or 3 places I could park the line.
I think Jimmy done that too.
Yes, he did. And so then along came the 64. You're talking about the turquoise car, and I bought fairly cheap, so that became my work car, and the ramp truck stayed here. I just drove it on weekends.
Yeah.
Hey, on the Chevy 2, I've noticed it says Revenge number.
The one I have now.
Yeah, the Chevy 2 now. Revenge 7. Where did that name come from?
That was a guy I was in partners with in Superstock from Alabama called Ronnie Treffenstead.
Uh-huh.
And Ronnie Treffenstead, Sonny Ray, Clark Davis all sort of traveled together. They run a lot of the Division II points races and stuff, and they knew we had the combo stuff going at Union Hill. So occasionally they'd sneak in, come from Alabama up and run with us on Saturday night. And he always had a car with 283, basically at some time or another in the same classes with Jimmy's cars. In other words, so it was sort of a heads up type deal. He'd come in, they'd run each other, I guess, for bragging rights or whatever, see who come out on top. And then I got to go to a few national events and points meets and stuff like that. And along the way, between them coming to Music City or Union Hill or whatever you want to call it, I call it the Hill.
Yeah, the Hill. Yeah, I think that name still sticks with it today. That's where we always say we're going to the Hill.
Yeah.
Going to points meets, them coming here, whatever. Somehow or another, Ronnie and I sort of hit it off together. Well, he had at the time, had a 65 Chevelle wagon with 283 in it. And he also had a 66 Chevelle wagon with 283 in it. And so he kept wanting me to take the 66 car and bring it up here where he'd have a car up here every week.
Oh.
And so we went in partners. And probably as great a guys you ever met in your life, I didn't have the money. He said, don't worry about it. We'll straighten up someday when we got the money or whatever.
Yeah.
And Ronnie was really, really good at keeping the car up for me. He did all motor work. I've never been a mechanic. I can't do motor work. So he would take, when the motor needed freshening or if I had it broke, I would take him the car down and I'd stay there long enough to help him get the motor out. And I'd come back home unless he already had it set up ahead of time. I would take a sick day and he'd have the machine shop set up and we would be there the next morning at the machine shop, have it home, come back to the shop. He'd put the rings, bearings, and freshen the motor. I'd leave there sometime before midnight in time to get back to go to work. I'd only miss one day's work.
Wow.
And we did that a lot. If not, if it was going to take longer, then I'd take it, drop it, and I'd go back later and pick it up.
How far down in Alabama was he?
Him and Sonny and Clark Davis all lived in Piedmont, Alabama. And
That's
Ronnie
pretty good ways down, isn't it?
It's not too far.
I'm thinking
it's
it
before.
took me 3 hours and we'll say 3.5 hours. I don't remember
About 3.5.
exact, to get to center. That's where service station's at. That's where he did all the work,
Yeah.
And we would do the work there, go to his house, go to bed and get up, be at the machine shop when they opened, so we could make a quick turnaround.
He have a full service station.
Amoco service station.
Yeah.
And that's that. At that time, but that's kind of before racing gas, or we didn't use it, or whatever. Decided the 283 didn't need it, or whatever. But we ran Amoco white gas in them. Well, then NHRA got to tell us our fuel wasn't fuel check because the white Amoco gas had no lead content, and the way they checked fuel, it had to have lead content.
Huh.
So we started putting 4-gallon Amoco in the jug and a gallon of regular to get a lead content. That's what we raced at national events and points mates, But Ronnie was a great guy. I never had a partner any better. He traveled a lot to the bigger races and I couldn't, But now I've seen him send his car to Pomona, California, and his street car will be sitting here where I took him to the airport and he'd fly to California.
Wow. Yeah.
And I don't know. As time went on, I believe we sold that car, the 66 wagon,
Right.
to George Howard, which was the original promoter of the old B&M series. Y'all may remember that. And George bought that car. Ronnie fixed a Chevy 2 to run with the 283 and run Super K with it. I took the 65 wagon,
right.
which is now the third white 65 wagon that I have driven because I drove the one for Bridges. I drove one for Lonnie Gardner occasionally. He had one. And then that car made 3 white 65 Chevelle wagons that I had driven in Superstar.
I don't remember Lonnie's car. I don't believe that.
I'm sure you have to go over there and look. There's a picture of it on the wall right over here behind us.
Yeah. I might have remembered it,
Lonnie's mama owned the Starlight Club, so a bunch of us boys hung out over in the basement all the time. His race car shop was under the club there.
Yeah.
And then long in that time, he bought the 2 68 Mustang convertibles from Bob Glidden.
Yeah.
And he met Bob at Bowling Green, and his mama sent me with him with cash money. She made me carry the money, you know? And he bought out Bob Glidden when he went to Pro Stock.
Yeah.
And so there was always some kind of turmoil or something going on all the time.
So that place was the place where everybody was hanging out back in those days.
In the basement,
In
you
the
know,
basement.
I probably wasn't even old enough to be up in the club.
So that place was a restaurant.
It's a very,
It's called Starlight Dinner Club.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
At that
the
time,
nightclub-
Lonnie's mama, everybody knows her as Sis, and she was pretty well the head woman for Davidson County.
Yeah.
Everybody in Davidson County knew her.
it was a very elite dinner club.
Yeah.
And back in the day, see, there really wasn't that many places to go out and eat or have a
Right.
nice dinner anywhere. And that place was really special.
I'd like to throw in one little side joke there. It's always been funny to me. Is she told Lonnie's mother, Sis, told Judy when we got married, she said, "You got to work in this boy in Davidson County." That always made me feel good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it just goes on and on and on. And it's, I don't think y'all have mentioned yet, I've did this a long time and it's hard to remember a lot of these old stories, but when y'all get me started on them, I can talk about them for a long time.
Well, we got some more stuff for you to really talk about. It seems like you were the hired gun of all drivers back then. I have a list of people you've driven for.
That makes me feel good, but does that sound like I'm being belligerent? I hope not. I love it.
No.
Okay.
Well,
That was a good enough driver that they wanted him to drive. Yeah.
If I can add to that before you even bring that up, I've never asked nobody to drive their car. They all asked me because I knew how hard it was for them to have the money to fix the car when I tore it up. I hated to tear another man's car up. I mean, that may sound silly to y'all, but I was born and raised on a farm, so I knew what work was all about. And them people worked hard to buy them cars.
Well, Dad's always said, man, Tucker can drive anybody.
Yeah.
He can drive
I
any
appreciate
car.
that.
I mean,
But I don't remember Cliff Stevens. I remember the name, but I just can't picture him, I guess.
Again, boys running around the neighborhood. He was one of our hangouts,
Yeah.
do you remember what car that was?
The first one that he and I sort of had together that I didn't have no driver's license. He's older than me, so he had driver's license, was the red and white little squirt car that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, okay.
After that, then I can't remember. He may have took that car back and started driving on the street because he built a 56 wagon, solid green. You may remember it, Chris. It's pretty bad hombre.
Yeah.
I drove it for him.
Yeah, I remember you driving that car, I
it's a
believe.
56 wagon.
Yeah.
I think we even threw a third seat back in the back and called it a 9-passenger.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But now Jimmy Bridges was involved a lot in that.
Well, that was the next person was Jimmy Bridges, which
That was what you say maybe our group of hangouts were there, and y'all probably know in the early days it was 4 or 5 hangouts in Nashville, and that's where everybody hung out. Bridges was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Dick Hoffman's place was another one. Otis Deck out of Hendersonville was another one. Clyde Phelps was on Dixon Road. Everybody had a group around here.
Yeah.
And
so you drove Jimmy's wagon. Which one was?
I drove the wagon. I drove all of Jimmy's cars at one time or another. I drove the hardtop that he liked so much, but not as often. Like I say, once we got to running for places, I will give Jimmy credit. A lot of people probably don't know that. Unless it was something special going on, he always gave me the fast car.
Right.
I had his fastest car all the time, He had transmission that would pick those cars up a tenth. When we go to a national event or points meet where we had to run class, that transmission did not go in until it was the final run to run against somebody to win the class or whatever, because it was approximately a tenth faster. But he can tell you, I can't tell you, but it was very limited on runs. It would break pretty quick. Yeah.
Jerry Biggs.
Jerry Biggs was the longest partner I ever had, best friend I ever had. Has what everybody will remember him from, he had the Mr. Lucky 57 Chevrolet.
Okay.
He and my brother-in-law, Ed Sudduth, which got killed in a car wreck, they ran like a pretty well stocked big block in that car, and it would go 720s, whatever. But the car, nobody never thought about it. The car weighed 3,770 pounds, you know, so that was pretty fast.
Yeah.
Well, Jerry wanted to go faster after he had passed away, and he kept on me, I want to do this, I want to do that. And somehow or another, I ended up, he wanted me to drive it. So I just started driving it. And one winter, Jerry was a craftsman at anything, but he decided to tackle cutting the frame, putting big tires, tubs, and the whole thing, and did a good job. And so he does that. And that winter we started on it the last weekend. They ran the hill in November. We tested it at the last Sunday in February. They ran February testing tunes, you know. Well, it took us from 1st of November to then to get the car ready.
Yep.
Well, in the meantime, he put a bigger motor in it. He got Harry Vineyard to help him with the motor, put some 13-to-1 pistons in it and better heads, and pepped the motor up quite a bit. And that car then went 630s, the best I remember.
Wow.
630s, 640s right in there.
Thing
Picked it up almost a second, you know, putting the big.
Still heavy though, wasn't it?
Still weighed 3770. He didn't want no fiberglass on it.
Yeah.
And then it became a problem when we went to the Dominator carburetor and all that, hood clearance and all that stuff, you know. So he did finally put a fiberglass hood so he could put a scoop on it because he wasn't cutting his steel hood up, you know.
Yeah.
And but Jerry and I started helping him. He was actually a partner with the Crate Motor Corvette that we bought, you know, that I was talking about earlier, that we ran so much and had both of them. Well, it was always a big joke when we lit out across the ridge up there. I didn't know which car was in the trailer. The Corvette weighed 2,400 pounds. The 57 weighed 37. I said, that ain't no problem. Listen to the truck moan, you know, trying to pull it. But anyway, that was basically 1990 by the time we got all that going pretty good. And Jerry got cancer and passed away in 2007. And so was that 17 years, I guess he and I partnered and I drove for him, you know.
Yeah.
Then after that, I finished the year out, the year he died with cancer. And it was sort of, he had mentioned it and I did not want the car because that was a car I couldn't have sold. But along through the time he had cancer, he mentioned to me one time that the daughter had said something about she would like to have a car. I went for that hard. I said, she needs, you know, she'll keep it.
Yeah.
You know, race cars are for sale for me. There are two, you know, and so I was proud of that because I would have never felt like that I could sell that car, you know, and so she has it, I think, today. I think you told me you have seen it at car shows.
It's good, guys.
Yeah.
It's still lettered and everything.
Yep.
I think like it was.
Dewey Knight.
Dewey Knight, God, lifetime friend. Don't know what all for sure. I drove for him, neighborhood guy. I actually in 1969 worked with him at Jones Pontiac, and we'd go from Pontiac dealer every day at lunch up to his mama's house and get a bowl of beans. She cooked some mean beans. But the cars I remember for sure that I drove for Dewey would have been, older people might remember it as the Little Giant. It was a red 68 Camaro modified car, had two carburetors on it. And the car had 86 miles on it. It was a better race car since it was brand new. And
Little Giant, I remember that car. Yeah.
I drove it and modified for him. He had a 68 Chevelle yellow with a black vinyl top.
Butternut yellow, Darryl.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Yep.
Big block, 396, 375. It was also a stick car. I was kind of partial to stick cars.
Yeah.
And it was a B stock, the best I can remember now. B or C, and I think it was B.
Yeah.
We won some races with that car. In fact, I think, I don't want to say nothing I shouldn't say, but I almost think Doug Greenfield always closed the season out with $1,000 bracket race at the end of the year after brackets came along.
Right.
And I think I won that bracket race in that car once.
Yeah.
Those two. Okay. Then he had a silver Chevy 2.
Yep.
I'm not sure. It may have been the ex-Terry Nolan car. If I'm not positive. It was a silver Chevy 2 ran Super Pro with all the time. I took it to Gainesville to the ET finals for the track one year. They didn't have enough cars going. They sent me with it.
Yeah.
Took it to that. And the car, a lot of people probably remember because it pretty high dollar chassis was the Dave Trimble Monza. Dewey bought that car from Dave Les Motor. And so there we sit with that car. He said, I wanted that car. I've always liked it. He bought it and didn't have a motor for it. Well, we got out here and got into all my 283 blowed up parts and took parts out of 3 motors and put a 283 together to put in that Monza. And ran
brackets with
that
it.
was a fun car because nobody ran anything like that in brackets.
And it was a stick too.
Yeah, it was a 5-speed car. And
Yep.
with the 283 in it, I'd have it in 5th gear by the time you get to about where the end of the aluminum bleachers are now.
Yeah.
All you was doing is changing gears.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Those 4 were probably his top cars that I drove. But now, Dewey was into a lot of cars, out of a lot of cars. So there's probably other cars that I drove once or twice that he done traded for something else. You know, he was a big trader and all like that on cars. He always had something going on. You know?
Yeah. What about Glenn Ackerman?
Glenn Ackerman. He was a retired, I'll say the wrong field, so I'm going to say serviceman because I don't remember if he was Army, Navy, what he was, but he was retired. I think he came here from maybe California. I'm not sure, but he got to hanging around, or first time I ever saw him was at Don Ford's out on Charlotte Avenue, and he had a wagon.
Yeah.
Chevy 2 wagon, of course.
Yeah.
You know me, I got a wagon.
Yeah.
But he asked me to drive it. I don't know, they'd already been running it some. And I believe that car had a 327. And I don't think it was a 283. And one of the reasons I say that because IHRA, a 283 was called a 4M, same as NHRA classification. And I set the IHRA national record in that car in Alabama at, do you remember numbers? 761.
761 at
I don't remember, my 91 mile
90 something mile
But on
an
the
hour.
record certificate, it says 4, I'm going to say I believe. So that tells me it didn't have 283 at that time.
Yeah.
It's been too long ago. That was early 70s, middle 70s.
Middle
October, I think, of 75. No, that was Stan 75, maybe 76.
Yeah.
That record certificate's up there on the wall.
That was 8th mile record.
8 miles, yes,
Yep.
yes. I set the record with that car, drove it. I don't know if I drove it a whole year, did I? I'm not. For him.
Yeah, I think
local
so.
Racing.
Yeah.
I think I drove it that whole year, and then I set the record with it in Alabama that IHRA points me.
Yeah.
Stan Perry.
Stan Perry. Everybody knows Stanley. He built, or Jimmy Bridges probably built it for him. I don't remember the exact deal on it, but it was a 69 Camaro, 396, 375 in 1975. I want to think was the year he had it. Stan hadn't done a lot of racing at that time. Maybe he had a little Chevy 2 slower bracket car, something with automatic in it. And don't reckon, to my knowledge, Stan had ever driven a stick car. he builds an A stocker. You know?
Yeah.
And I drove it that year for him and set the A stock national NHRA national record at Warner Robins, Georgia, at the first points meet at 1161, I think, at 118. If that tells you anything,
Yeah.
those records now are probably in the 9s and they stopped. You know? And that was in 75. But Stan was a real good car owner.
Yeah.
Drove that car for him, and I can't remember who he sold that car to.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's, I think, the only car I ever drove for him. I'm not positive.
Don Wolf.
Don Wolf. Everybody knows the Wolf man.
Yeah.
Wolf had partners, Mabry, Hope, and Wolf. White Chevy 2 wagon, just same, almost like my car, except theirs was nicer than mine, I guess. I don't know.
Came from Mike Casillas.
Yeah.
Is where that car
But,
come from.
Yeah, I'd forgot that, but you're
Yeah.
correct. They did get that car from Mike Casillas, but they won the U.S. Nationals in it.
Sure
They
did.
won the Spring Nationals in it in Columbus, Ohio. Okay.
Won the Gator Nationals too, didn't
Won
he?
the Gator Nationals, but
Mhm.
I don't know if it was that car or the hard crop. But anyway, along through there somewhere or another, I had my wagon at that time, the number Revenge 6 car, which is the same class as their car. And they bought the two-door hardtop Super K car from my ex-partner, Ronnie Trevenstead, that he had built at that time because he had started running competition eliminator. And they bought that car, but they hadn't sold the wagon. Well, Steve Mabry come to me. I don't know if it was during that week or what, and said, we got both these cars. Said, how about you driving the wagon? Wolf's going to drive the new car, the K car or whatever. So whatever y'all want to do. And I figured when it came down, and I don't think there was any, best I can remember, no team orders. I was looking for team orders. Long story short, I run Wolf in the finals in his own car. And beat him. In his Chevy 2 wagon, but he had the hardtop.
Oh, wow.
Wolf was, he was a great guy, and I would have did team orders if they'd have told me to. They didn't tell me to. And Wolf has always been around. His wife called here in the last 2 or 3 days or something.
Yeah.
But Wolf did a lot of other things for me. Judy and I were on the way to Bradenton, Florida, to a points meet. And Judy may remember which year, I don't know, but it was daylight in Gainesville, Florida. The sun was coming up, and I done drove all night and worked all day the day before. I hadn't been asleep in 2 days, and I was just nodding. And I don't know if you've ever drove, and when your sun first starts coming up, that's the hardest time to stay awake.
That's true.
But Wolf was in front of us, behind us, or whatever, and he got to noticing me darting around on the road. He got on the CB radio and said, hey, you need to pull over. Okay, he had several people with him or some more drivers. He come back and got in our truck and drove us the rest of the way to Bradenton. I was asleep. And somebody else drove his truck on in, but stuff like that. We all traveled together.
Yeah.
Judy left all of her winter clothes in Gainesville at the Gator Nationals for his wife. One year we done got beat and come home and it turned cold down there.
Yeah, it was actually snow flurrying in Gainesville, Florida.
Wow.
And Mary Sue didn't have any winter clothes with her. I did.
That's some of the deals with Wolf. And there's lots more. This could go on. This one conversation could go on for a long time. Me and Wolf will go a long way back.
Yeah. What about Glenn Young?
Glenn Young, as most people would know him, he was a car dealer, and he had race cars just like he did street cars. He had a different one every 2 weeks. I drove a GT car. The one I remember the most was the GT would be front wheel drive conversion that they switched and put them back to rear wheel. They call them in Superstock, call them GT. And it was a real good car. Like a week or two, and then something else. I drove a Chevy 2 super modified car he had. And at that time, it had a clutchless transmission. Well, I'd never driven a clutchless transmission. He kept asking me to make a time trial in it after the races was over, or during the races. I think it was on a Friday night at Music City. And I was still in the race in my other car. And I told him, I said, Glenn, as soon as I get beat, I will make a pass for you. I said, I've never driven a clutchless, but I'll try anything. A step car, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And, well, it was round after round after round. I ended up, I won the race over here, so I ain't made that pass yet. Well, they let us stay after the race. They let us make a pass or two, And, it took me, I think the third pass, best I remember, before I could mind over rules matter, I'd push the clutch in every time I go to second gear.
Yeah.
Well, that was defeating the purpose.
Yeah.
Those cars would go about a tenth faster if you didn't touch the clutch in them.
Yeah.
And of course, you had to leave the starting line with the clutch.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's just automatic in my head. Everything I ever drove, you push the clutch in to put it in second gear.
Yeah.
So I done it before it dawned on me. You big dummy, And, but anyway, third pass, I told him, I said, if I knew how to leave the starting line without my clutch leg, I just tied my leg over the side roll bar where I couldn't. I couldn't figure out how to leave the starting line. But anyway, I finally remembered to do it, and the car did go exactly a tenth quicker than it went the other two passes, but not pushing the clutch. So that was a time a lot of people were flirting with clutchless stuff, and we wasn't supposed to have them in Superstock. They were illegal, but they was up here around. So I'm trying to think. You can't think of anything else I drove for Glenn Young?
No, there probably is something else, but I can't.
Judy has a little red Honda Spree scooter that she bought from Glen Young in 1986, and it's out there in the trailer right now. She's still
I
riding
still
it.
ride it.
She rides
I ride
today
it all
in
the time.
trailer.
Harry Vineyard.
Harry's been around through it all. He's always helped me. He started in the 60s. You may remember he had a 62 Ford. He hung out at Clyde Phelps's. I don't think how exactly we got together, hanging out at Bridges, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got together. Harry's always helped me, advised me on different stuff, sets up if so few people anymore can set up a Dana rear end, he still sets up my Dana rear ends.
That's good. Yeah.
He did a lot of times. If we were fortunate enough to have two motors, while I'd have one being fresh, and I'd have Tommy Hogue and Tim Davidson hone a block or something, Harry actually put some of my motors together. Of course, when we freshmen, we never went to Indy without a spare motor. We had a spare motor with us all the time, and for some odd reason, it seemed like we always changed it. We'd have the best motor, best parts we owned in the car when we got there, but for some reason, I'd think the one in the truck would run faster, so we'd swap motors when we got there.
Yeah.
But Harry's always been around. Harry calls me about every day.
Does he?
Yeah, he still does.
Oh,
And we
cool.
discuss all the problems of the world. But he's been here for a long time.
What about Earl Fry?
Earl Fry. Ooh, another long story.
Let's get it.
Earl Fry had a 67 big block Camaro Super Pro car. It was an ex-Wayne Birthright car, and I believe Stan Perry owned the car. But anyway, I forget who Earl actually bought it from, but it was a Super Pro car back when Super Pro in the early 80s. You probably will remember 7 flat was a pretty fast Super Pro car. This was a big block Camaro, and it went about 7 flat. That's all they ran. Today they'll tell it how fast those cars go. But anyway, how that came about, the year before, I think it was 81, the Superstock car was killing me. I mean, I was working all night trying to keep the car running and work the next day and this and that and other. I told her that winter, I said, we're going to have some more motors together when season opens somehow or another. I'm not working 24 hours a day to do this. And so we pieced everything we could together. Racing season always started first Saturday night in March. First Saturday night in March, I had 3 complete motors for the Superstock car. First Saturday night in April, I had none.
We had nothing.
They were all
Nothing.
blown up. Earl comes along with this bracket car. He said, "Won't you drive my car and get all your motors towed up and all?" I said, "It's up to you. I said, I don't care." I said, "I don't see how anybody would want me to drive anything. I broke 3 engines in here in a month, but anyway, I drove for him. That was my first year to win the Super Pro Points Championship in Earl's car.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
1982, I won the Super Pro, and I've won since then several. But anyway, that was my first Super Pro championship. And I had won, Super Stock and stuff before, but not that. So I won the point championship in that car. Long story. Earl was a truck driver, and he was gone a lot. And one of the things I remember him always asking me to do, said, "If you don't mind, don't take my car to the racetrack." He'd leave the car here, ramp truck, everything is his. And he wanted it raced. But he said, "If you don't mind, make sure you wash that thing. I don't like my car to be dirty." He said, I'm not all that fanatic about it being worked on or maintenance, but I like it to be washed. So make sure you wash this car.
Gotta have a clean race car.
That was Earl. And he could make one clean. He could sit down with something and shine the chrome, the old steel wheels. He could sit there and a few minutes, brand new wheels. He's just that type of guy. But good guy. He passed away real early, probably from truck driving too many hours.
Now, I've heard this name a couple times already. Ronnie Trefferstedt.
He's the man. I think I talked about him so much a while ago. I don't know really what else to say. He's a great guy, great partner.
What about Fat Boy Tally?
James Fat Boy Tally. Everybody probably remembers Fat Boy. He's usually on the starting line.
Stand there at the little building watching the tax.
Yeah, there's a picture of him right there on the wall.
Picture of him right there looking in my car. He's standing there, and first time or two, you prevent your vision. You catch him on his shoulder or whatever. And I thought, who is that? What's he doing? Whatever. And I knew, from then on. Great guy, I like Fat Boy. But he's going to look in that car and see where you left. Well, that was about the time we were already leaving the 283s wide open. They wouldn't turn a lot of they had turned a lot, but they would, 8,000 was a lot of RPM for him. Well, NHRA got to getting looser and looser and looser on head rules and stuff like that. Well, but when he's in that picture up there, I was leaving at 10,000 on the starting line if I wanted to go fast. You know, it's combo 1, you went fast as you could go. Combo 2 was a dial in just like it is today. Well, that car leaving on the mat with the chip in my front pocket would run 500s quicker than it would if I chipped it at 8,800. It liked the RPM on starting line. Motor didn't like it. Motor didn't live long. You know, we used to say we're going to freshen these motors at 50 runs. I never had a combo 1 motor live 50 runs. You know? And they gave us some more RPM and all with the head rules and stuff like that. Well, they didn't give us. We still had stock rods and stock valves. Well, stock rods and stock valves don't like 10,000 RPM. I can tell you from experience. But anyway, Tally had a Monza, maroon Monza. You may remember it, Super Pro car. First time I ever went in the 5-second zone on 8th mile. You know, I drove that car a few times for Fat Boy, and it went like 560 is the best I can remember. But I knew it was the fastest thing I'd ever rode in, you know. And
wonder whose car that was.
I don't know where he come up with it or nothing. You know, Tally.
Bob Gibbs in.
Bob Gibbs, Bob just passed away. He has had a lot of cars. I can't tell you for sure. I'm just going to concentrate on one that I know I drove several times for him. I think I've drove Bob's cars, several of them. But the silver 69 Camaro he had 10 years ago, maybe. I'm guessing there.
Bracket car?
Yes, bracket car.
I don't remember the
silver 69 big block bracket car. Do you remember what Bob's car ran? I don't remember the ET.
I don't remember the ET.
But anyway, Bob was one of the guys that was always in our camp. He always, in May, I think, when strawberries are fresh, he always brought Judy fresh strawberries. But he was really good at what I was explaining to you a while ago. If I drove his car, I put the Corvette in front of the line. He'd put his in the line 5 from the back. If I won the round, or either way, won or lost, I had to get back to the staging lanes. I would drive my car back to where he was in line at with his car. I would get out of my car, get in his car. He'd take the Corvette back to the trailer and either park it or fuel it and get it ready for the next round. And Bob was good at it. You didn't have to worry about, is he going to remember to do this, do that?
Right.
You know, he took care of everything. Bob was a great guy.
Tommy Neely.
Tommy Neely Jr. is, I guess you'd say, married to Dewey Knight's daughter, Angela. Well, Angela calls Judy and I her step parents or something. She's been around us
just like kids to us.
She says that's my other mom and daddy or something.
My other mom and daddy.
And got to know, knew Tommy, but got to know Tommy better after they got married. And we communicate with them quite well. They call here, we call them or whatever quite well. Tommy had me drive his car, and it probably was one of the one-time deals, the best I remember. He had driven my car, I think, while his car was broke, and he just insisted. I broke mine one night, and he insisted, "You're going to drive my car tonight." So I drove it. I know I drove it the one time, and I think that's all I've drove Tommy's car, but we're close friends.
He'll do anything for you.
Doug Ulrich.
He is, everybody knows him as the thriller, I guess you'd say. He's one of the guys, and you asking me about these people that I can't tell you for sure. A lot of these people I drove maybe one time for when I was at the track, tore my car up or something. Somebody'd say, "Drive my car." Doug was one of them. I know I drove one, maybe more than one, but he had a blue 66, 67 Chevy 2. Back when Ron Richardson was real hot in both classes. Doug had one of those. I broke my car. And Doug said, "Well, just run my car." Doug, he busy talking anyway. You know how Doug wants to talk. And I said, "Doug, you don't have to do that. My car's broke." He said, "No, get in my car." He kept on. I said, "I don't even know how to use that delay box." He said, "I'll come in the right door and do the delay box for you." You know, it was a delay box I'd never seen before. And Doug's Doug's Doug. I don't know how to really describe him. He's always comes around. He'll stop here every now and then, just out of the clear. You ain't seen him in 6 months, and he'll knock on the back door. You know?
How about Kenneth Ross?
Kenneth Ross is another of the one-time deals, I think. Kenneth may correct me on this. I broke Mike's Monza. And Mike and Kenneth have always been close friends. They've always parked side by side for years and years and years.
Kenneth Ross's
the Monza was Kenneth Ross's car at one time.
Yep.
Well, I broke it, and I can't tell you what I broke. Well, in the course of the night, I'm thinking, well, we're done for the night. Well, Mike and Kenneth get together, and Mike said, we'll just put that entry on your car. And Kenneth had the S10 truck.
Okay.
So they cooked it up for me to jump from the car I broke, and I can't tell you which one it was, over into Kenneth's truck. So I drove that night in Kenneth's truck, the S10. And I don't remember another time driving for Kenneth, but I did drive his car. Another one of the one-timers, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Those people are great to let you drive their stuff.
Yeah. James Beasley.
James Beasley, he had, I think I drove both of them at one time or another. He had the 2 black Camaros, 67. He called the SS car, and he had a 68 that had never been cut down in the back. He called it the stopper because it had 9-inch tires on it.
Yeah.
The car I drove for him the most was the 67, the one he called the SS car. And it was, chopped, had big tires and all on it. It was probably drove it more at Clarksville. He announced at Clarksville.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yep.
Leon, y'all know Leon Robinson, and his daddy always was with Beasley at those race cars. Well, Beasley was one that demanded you put 5 gallons of water through the motor every run. So Leon and George, his daddy, they had to bring me the 5 gallon of water. They run the 5 gallon of water through. Leon wasn't, I don't know how old Leon was, but he was small.
Yeah.
And I drove that car some at the hill, but not as much as I did at Clarksville. But that's kind of the Beasley era.
I heard a lot about this guy, Charlie Lee.
Charlie Lee. There ain't for one Charlie. He's a good guy. Everybody I drove for is good guys. If they let me drive their car, they're good guys. No, Charlie, in the Combo 1 days, he had one of the baddest Combo 1 cars at Union Hill. The red Chevy 2, and his son, Charlie Lee Jr., drove it. Done an excellent job. They won a lot of races. I can't remember the exact circumstances. Charlie Jr. wasn't there one night. Charlie's going to drive the car, and he's older than I am, so he hadn't drove in a long time. And I think the first thing he done, of course, the Combo return road over there has a dog leg in it. I think Charlie didn't take the dog leg and run it up the gully down there or whatever, and he got all tore up. He come to me, he said, will you drive my car? I said, Charlie, I'll try, And I know that happened once, could have been twice.
Is that when that car was black?
No, it was red. It was
red then?
Yeah.
But it started out a black car, didn't it?
Probably. I can't tell you that for sure. That, I don't know if you want me to go on to that now, but that's where number 6 come from. I bought number 6 from Charlie Lee. But, Charlie's Charlie, and he's funny, good guy, and I had no complaints whatsoever. Like I say, I bought a car from him, and he was always interested that it went fast.
Yeah, the wagon.
Yes.
Yep.
David Sanders.
David Sanders, y'all probably know now, current, and has for several years. He's one of the sponsors at Music City. Sanders Auto Sales. Sanders Auto Sales. He has about a 79, 80, 81 Malibu that he runs.
Oh, the white car. I know. Had the little blue truck you drove.
Right. There you go. There you go. The blue truck. This is where this comes from. David was in between cars. Mike Gerald had quit again or was fixing to quit, whatever. And we were going to go watch the races, I guess. I don't know what our plan was at that point. We quit 50 times. We don't never last but 2 weeks. But anyway, David bought the little blue S10 from,
Adam Davis, well-known foot brake racer out of Alabama. I went with David to go get the truck, and it was a foot brake car. Well, in our ride down there and all, David got to say, well, we'll put a delay box in and you run it in Super Pro while you driving it, whatever. Well, next thing I know, okay, David puts a
delay box in the car. I don't remember. We did a few little odd ends to it, and it did fine. It's small tire and everything. He put a new set of bars and all that and got it fairly consistent. And the next thing I knew, he said, now you're going to have to come to my house this afternoon because he runs a car lot. Saturday's a busy day for him. He said, you'll come up to the house. I'll have it all ready. Take my black Judy and the trailer and I'll have the car loaded and everything. I said, no, I don't do that. You need to truck in the trailer. He said, no, I got an open trailer. I'll bring up mine on the open trailer with whatever car lot vehicle or something. I thought, man, you ain't this bad. You're giving me the enclosed and the Judy. You're going to just do whatever you can do to get your car there, But I drove, I can't tell you how long, several weeks, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And is that when we bought this car?
Yes.
That's right before I bought the yellow car I have now, number 7.
Yeah.
And, David has since then bought and sold the blue truck 2 or 3 times. I think he has it back again right now. I think putting an LS in it, or he talked about putting an LS in it. And, but he owned a car lot in Portland and now owns one in Greenbrier also, Sanders Auto Sales. Him and his brother Glenn, fine people. David again helped me, last year. I broke the motor in the yellow car. Couldn't get no parts nowhere. And I finally just decided to buy a Scott Shafroth short block and put it in it. Well, I don't know nothing about shipping and buying and carrying on. So David took and ordered the motor and had it delivered to his car lot for me. So, I mean, he's done a lot. He went to school. He went to high school with my son.
Yeah, he went to school with Chris.
Okay.
David used to come here as a kid,
Right.
But he's got a brother, Glenn, and you know how they say brothers must fight or whatever. I've never seen them two have a crossword at the car lot. They all big laughing, joking all the time. Great guys.
What about Lonnie Garner?
Lonnie Garner, back to the Starlight Club again. I was raised up by Lonnie. Lonnie used to, like I told you earlier, we lived on a farm and Lonnie used to love to come to the farm and stay with us, our house 2 or 3 days or whatever. And I think Bob Brinsley named him the farmer after that or whatever.
Was he older than, was he quite older than you?
Lonnie is probably 3 years younger, 2 or 3 years younger.
Oh, okay.
And you might have thought he was older because he drove a new Corvette before he had driver's license. Best I remember, I think he was 14 or 15 on a permit, but he had a new Corvette. he was so funny, I got to tell. He drove a new Corvette to school when he was, say, a freshman. And the senior girls were mobbing him.
Rick Harless.
Rick Harless. Rick, most people know Rick. He had a Chevy 2 wagon. He still has the car today. White and blue. Very fast car. Back.
550s, I think.
Yeah, that's now with a big block in it. But back before this, it had a SB2 motor in it.
Oh, it's got a big block now.
It has a big block, I think, now. But back in the time I drove it, it had a, you remember 580s maybe? 580s or something, had a SB2 in it.
Yeah, right.
Well, Mike Fuquay rented Beach Bend, had a 20 grand to win race there. At that time, there wasn't many 20 grand to win races around. Now that's not much of a race, but it was then. 10s were big back then. And I was driving for Mike Gerald and his Monza. Everybody probably remembers the Monza. I was in the 5th round of the race. In the 5th round, I blowed the engine in the Monza, but I got the wind light when it blowed. So there we are, ready to go to the 6th round. And here come Rick. Rick said, take my car and go to the next round. I said, you see, you hear that a lot now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then I'd never heard this. I said, they're not going to let us do that, Rick. Well, I'm going to find out. He goes and asks Fuquay. Said, can Tucker come back in my car? He broke a motor down there. And Fuquay said, Rick, they'll hang me if I let him do something like that, because nobody had ever done that, come back with another car and continue the race, and I understood that. I told Rick, I said, it'll never happen, But anyway, that was on first day of the race or whatever. Next day we had another day of race coming up or whatever. Well, Rick just insisted I drive the wagon the rest of the weekend, whatever. And again, about like I was with Doug Ulrich, I said, I ain't got a clue how to operate that darn delay box. I said, no, delay boxes I ever had is old thumb wheel. I could figure that out, but I don't know nothing about that. He said, I'll set the delay box for you. So I drove Rick's car there. Rick's a great guy. I've known him since back in the Clarksville days. He used to dominate Clarksville back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
What about Sam Stewart?
Sam Stewart was a guy, I don't even know what happened to him. He may not be alive anymore. But that was in the real early days of the 60s. He had a black 65 Chevelle 327 4-speed car and sort of hung out in the group, all of us. And Sam was kind of shy. I don't know why he liked that car and everything, but he didn't want to go down the drag strip. He wanted me to run it. So here I am. I drove that, not a lot, probably off and on.
Was that a stalker?
It would have been back when of the stock. There wasn't nothing else. I don't remember what class a 327 Chevelle was.
Probably a C stock, maybe.
Anyway, I drove it a few times for him and that, and then he's one of them that come through drag racing and went on. I don't know what happened to him, but he was a good friend at that time.
Mike Gerald.
Mike Gerald ain't the one. After I had open heart surgery in 2010, we had our stuff parked and, trying to get over the open heart surgery, I think I still had the Corvette, the Featherlight Trailer, and the Blue Dilly. And we made a decision not to race right then because I had lost my job in the meantime too. Peterbilt closed and I'd been there 39 years, So I took and was going to set out. I thought Mike come to me. He said, why don't you drive? If you're not going to run your stuff, why don't you drive the Monza? I said, Mike, if I could afford to race right now, I'd be in my own stuff. I'm trying to be smart about this, And Mike said, come on, drive it anyway. It don't take much to talk me into it, as you can tell all the people I know. But anyway, I said, okay. I started with Mike in the Monza. And I think Mike can probably tell you, I think I won the first night I drove the hill. If not, it was the second night. I can't remember for sure. Well, that sort of locked us in together for a while,
Yeah.
And I drove the Monza. I don't know where you seem to be looking at them now.
Yeah. I know which one. Yeah,
there's 5 cars over there on the wall that I drove.
There's a Chevy 2. There's a Camaro.
There was a Monza. Then there was the red Chevy 2 two-door post car. Then there's the white car that always it looks like a pro stock car. We bought that from Rick Hardison.
Okay.
And
the Pontiac.
The blue Pontiac Firebird.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? Oh, the red Chevy 2 two-door hardtop that Donnie Neely ran in Supergas.
Yep. Okay.
There's 5 of them over there.
Yeah.
One 10 grander at Bowling Green right up there in the blue Chevy 2 in 2017. And the car we got from Donnie Neely. That's the fastest car I ever drove. That was a small block car, and I went 542 or something one time. Won a lot of, at the hill, it'd go 550, 560s right in there.
Yeah.
But that ride has always been we always get a big laugh. Mike's always funny. I mean, poor thing, his health is terrible.
Yeah.
He's severe diabetic,
and had back problems forever,
always,
I think.
Always.
Yeah.
But now, he's always doing something trying to kill himself. The white Camaro and the red two-door post Chevy 2, both of those burnt in shop fire.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Mike burnt the garage down. He was draining the fuel out of the white car. I don't know for what reason, but we was taking alcohol out of it or whatever. Well, it splashed or something.
I thought he dropped a
it splashed on the drop cord. It was old drop cord with a light bulb in it. It splashed on it and it lit the garage. And there was a 55-gallon barrel of alcohol we hadn't even opened sitting there beside it. And when the fire department got there, all they wanted to do is keep a hose from that barrel of alcohol on the sides and the swell pretty big out of it,
Well, that was a good car that got burnt in.
Oh,
yeah.
The white
both
Camaro,
of them.
Yeah.
Well, he lost both of them. It totaled both of them. It burned. It was so hot. That car had aluminum drive shaft in it and melted it. There wasn't nothing left but the yokes.
Oh, gee.
The red Chevy 2, also, it had the frame rails coming back. You know, of course it was narrow, but the frame rails coming back over the top of the rearing houses, right behind the rearing houses, and the frame rails laid down. It got so hot.
Oh,
It was like
man.
he didn't bend it down.
Could you
That's
save
crazy.
any of the motors?
The motors, yes, both motors got saved.
That's, yeah.
He recovered from that pretty fast. I don't remember now exactly how it went down. Got a new garage.
He probably had insurance on that.
Got a new garage built, and both of them drug all the way. He went and bought the red Chevy Tube and Donnie Neely. That car.
Yeah.
So then we were back in business again. That was probably a month or two ordeal, maybe a little longer. I don't know, but it wasn't down long. And then he ran it. I can't tell you how long, probably till maybe we'll say 2020 or something. And he sold it to, I think, guys from Shelbyville. Is that right?
I think that's
I think
right.
he's from Shelbyville. I don't know the guy. He was an old round tracker, I think.
Right.
But not positive on that. But anyway, he said, I'm quitting again and everything. You know, I said, okay, I understand. No problem. Well, it wasn't 2 weeks. He said, hey, I just called him. I just bought another race car. He bought the Blue Firebird from all the guys. Owns all of the big junkyard in Georgia that everybody talks about at all the big races all the time.
Buzz
Johnson.
McCarty.
The Bug McCarty.
Oh, no.
He bought that from him. Mike Gerald is probably as good a car as I ever drove for. He is a person you have got to get to know because he'll say a lot of stuff that might hurt your feelings. And I learned that in the beginning because I never could figure out why he's got 3 sons that are as good a drivers as there is out there, all 3 of them. And I never could figure out why that is until I started driving for him. And I let him go in one ear and out the other if it's something crazy that I don't want to talk about. And Mike knows that. Mike and I have always gotten along well. I don't reckon we've ever had crosswords or anything. I think the world of him and his wife, Margie, she worked at the track for several years and could probably run the timing tower by herself, But they're fine people, and I really think a lot of them.
Well, Tucker, after looking back at your track record with NHRA, along with Miss Judy, you have multiple class wins in stock and super stock from 1980 to 1988. Gainesville multiple times, Columbus multiple times, Bowling Green multiple times, and the mecca of them all, Indy. I gotta ask, what's it like to win a Wally?
Your first one is really, really special because you probably, if you weren't real lucky, you've already tried several times and got it handed back to you with no Wally. But the first would have been Gainesville. I think you may have that down. I think Gainesville was my very first. And I think Stan Perry was with me. I'm not sure. But they all wanted to go out for dinner and everything else. We got to celebrate this, but we had a great time. All of them were great.
Would that have been the wagon? What would that have been?
Yes,
Was that the Chevy too?
I believe so.
1980.
Oh, 1980. Okay. Well, that
could have been one of the Chevelle wagons. I can't remember.
I think it was the Chevelle wagon.
I believe it was one of the Chevelle wagons.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
not badly mistaken.
Yeah.
It's right in the time I bought the Chevy 2 from Charlie in 80, 81, 82, right in there somewhere or another.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Too many years ago.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't remember any better than I can, but 61 years is a long time. Remember
61 years is a long time. Well, it gets into the next questions. It said, I got to know, what era at Union Hill, Music City, was the most memorable and why? This could be a hard one. You were in the first Music City banquet and multiple since. And looking back at the National Dragster from 1977 to 1988, over a decade, you were Superstock Driver Champion of the Year multiple times, Best Sportsman multiple times, Hard Luck Awards, and Judy, you were even the Employee of the Year up there at 1983. And not to mention, you were inducted in the Music City Hall of Fame, in 1985. From the 1990s to the 2020s, you won the Super Pro Champion Driver of the Year over 10 times and counting. So let me reframe. Do you have a most memorable year at Music City and why?
Very much so, and probably It'll be hard to understand, but I would like to group it into, say, those first ones you're talking about, starting in 77, 78, 79. They were all voted on by the people. That meant a lot for your people around you to put you out there.
Right.
Right.
78 would be my probably most precious, because I was voted top sportsman of the whole deal,
Right.
Being other people telling you you're a good sportsman in a drag race when you done got mad 50 times going down. I tried to be cooled off before you got to see me.
Right.
In other words, from the finish line back to the pits,
Right.
I tried to get all my anger out and go tell you, if you just with me, good job. That, I feel like being a sportsman means a lot to me. So I'm going to say 77, 70. I know you're asking for one time.
Oh, yeah.
77,
Well, I mean, I don't think
77, 78, 79, the people voted me. I didn't get that by earning points.
Yeah. Right.
That's all your peers around you voted you the best. That made me feel good.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would make you not forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Yeah.
They're always there.
But they're all special.
And the Greenfields, had bought that track and all in the 70s, and they were just great promoters. I'm not trying to down anybody,
Right.
but Doug Greenfield had raced.
Well, he had raced and Pappy had raced.
The whole clan.
family,
Yeah.
they knew what you were going through, Drag racing is not easy. You give up a lot of other things, or we did back then.
Yeah.
Look at the things she didn't get because I was drag racing.
Yeah.
We didn't take vacations. You brought up a while ago the class wins and all like that.
Uh-huh.
That was our vacations. If you'll look, we tried to go to 3 national events a year and occasionally get a 4th. That, as time went on, I had 3 weeks vacation, and then I got a 4th week vacation. Every one of them was based on a race somewhere.
Yeah.
I tried, and that made it hard to give
Right,
up
yeah.
everything else and use your vacation. She didn't get to go to the beach, or she didn't get to do
Right.
this. We were at a racetrack. She and I together, I think she will back me up on this, and she used to have figures on it somewhere. I think we went to Indy to the U.S. Nationals 25 straight years.
Oh, wow.
And
that's cool.
That was even after we didn't have stock and super stock anymore. We would go watch. We were so dedicated to that race.
Yeah, we enjoyed it.
Well, Tucker, what was your favorite car that you liked to own and drove?
Has to be number 6, the white Chevy 2 wagon.
The
That's
wagon?
the one that produced the most wins
Yeah.
in stock and super stock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm kind of characterize that. It's separating it, stock and super stock. Favorite car for brackets sitting out in the garage right now, number 7.
Right. Yeah.
That was my 50th wedding
That's our
anniversary.
50th wedding anniversary.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Yep. The wagon now, do you know where it's at? I know it went to Alabama.
Yeah.
I sold the wagon to Danny Kaufman.
Danny
Yep.
Kaufman.
He got it for the motor, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think, I can be wrong on this, I think the motor that was in the car, it was the last 283 Superstock motor I had.
Yeah.
I think it is in the maroon Chevy 2. What's his name?
Yeah.
The country music lady's husband,
Marshall Haynes.
Marshall Haynes. Now, who was he married to?
Connie Smith.
Connie Smith.
Mhm.
I think the motor is in the Connie Smith car, which is in Kentucky Museum right now. Dallas Jones on it.
Yeah.
I think Kaufman let Dallas have that motor
To go in
to
there.
go in that car, and Mike Lynch put it in. I think I'm right.
Yeah.
That's hearsay, but I
Yeah.
think I'm right.
Yeah.
But that car is, that motor's in that car.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember hearing the story. Now, I don't know which car you was in, but you gave a reporter a ride from the Tennessean, a Tennessean reporter. You gave him a ride.
On a Saturday afternoon, it was combo 1, combo 2 days, I'm sure. We were there all hanging out up on the hill where we parked up there, and Doug Greenfield come to me, which is, y'all all know Doug was the owner, promoter, or whatever of the racetrack. And he said, I need a favor. I said, sure, Doug, I'd do anything for you. he said, there's a Nashville, Tennessee reporter up here. And he said, you know, they were writing a report and all our story on this track and all. He said, is there any way? He said, I'm going to pay you. He said, is there any way I could get you to ride him down the track? I said, first off, yes. Second off, no. You're not going to pay me. I'll enjoy it. I said, I'll be glad to whenever you want to or you're ready.
We're going to give this guy a ride.
Let's go for it. He laughed.
Give him a
He
ride.
said, well, I'd like to pay you. I said, no, I'm not taking your money, but I will do it. I think it was a Chevelle wagon, wasn't it?
No, it was a Chevy
Chevy
2.
It was a Chevy
Yeah.
2.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was a Chevy 2 wagon. He
Yeah.
said, Doug comes back in a few minutes. He said, it's one other thing. He said, if you don't mind, would you loosen the front end up on it a little bit? I said, whatever you want, boss man, that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
I loosened it up a little. I put it in the air. Of course, it bounced real bad when it done that. But it sort of, when it would bounce, it would sort of bounce in every gear and come off the ground.
Yeah.
You know, you probably remember,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. We got to the other end of the racetrack. Of course, I was busy shifting. I ain't have time to watch him. You know, he didn't have no seatbelt or nothing, you know. He's sitting over on the right side, you know.
He didn't.
And
He's
that's
having
right.
under his air life.
Yeah, no,
He was
helmet.
hanging on. No.
No. So we got to the finish line. I get the car under control, stopping, you know, everything. I said, wasn't much to it, was it? He never did answer me. When we down going around the bowl, down there real slow around the bowl. And then I don't know where it took him that long to answer what. He said, I'm speechless. I said, well, I didn't figure it thrilled you too much. He said, I'm speechless. It was so funny if you could just see the expression on his face, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that happened. Doug thought of that, not me,
Yeah.
you know. But it tickled a lot of people. There was people
Oh,
up there.
yeah.
People were ganged around the car to see him get out of the car.
Yeah, I bet.
His eyes were pretty big.
Yeah. Well, Tucker, who's your most fierce competitor, or were you everyone's fierce competitor?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how they felt, but my most fierce is whoever's in the other lane every round.
That's
That
the way to
guy
look at
is
it.
over there to beat you,
Exactly.
and that's why he's there. I'm over here to beat you. I want it to be nothing but serious from start to finish. When we cross the finish line, I want us to be friends.
Yeah. That's the only way to do it.
But I think people don't, especially in bracket racing, people do not understand how capable anybody is.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody.
Anybody.
Yeah.
On any, especially when you want to add into it, anybody can have a given run if they don't do it too consistent.
Right.
They can have a given run, you can't get inside of it.
Right,
You know?
right,
I mean,
right.
you've seen it.
Yeah, you're really, nowadays, you're racing yourself to an extent.
Yes.
But you have that option, or you have the odds that this guy might mess up.
And people don't understand
Right.
that. You know, I mean, like I told you earlier in the interview, they pick you out, a total person, stranger to the system, and try to explain the bracket race to them.
Oh.
You know, they don't understand. What do you mean you got there first and didn't win? You know, I thought you was racing, you know, and that's hard to explain.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot more to it than people give credit to. Bracket racing came along in the 70s. There was none of that, you know, until then. And those guys have took it and ran with it. Those guys, we used to sell them our used stuff that come off the cars, you know. That's the bracket guys took hand-me-down stuff because they didn't have the money to get the top-notch stuff.
Right.
Now, you go to $1 million bracket race, there's a tractor and trailer sitting there at a bracket race with 4 brand new dragsters. He's got the money now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He don't do that no more, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
The combo people, you go to one of their races, they've all got the motorhomes and nice trailers, but there's not near as many of them as there is in the bracket. And
Well, they're diehards.
right,
They love it,
Yeah.
and that's
Yes.
what they gonna do.
Well, there's
You
some
know?
big money. It's gotten to now, there's the new terminology, I guess, over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Big money
I
racing.
mean,
Yeah.
And now I even call the big money races, you can call me wrong if you want to, 90% of the big money races are going to be won by what I call the traveling pros. They're the guys
Yeah.
with the big rigs that's going from race to race to race to race.
They do it all the
Okay.
time.
All the time.
And
Yep.
you'll hear a strange name every once in a while, but not often.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to call their names because I'm not trying to embarrass them, but
Right.
I give you 10 or 15 names that's going to be in them finals on them big races.
Yep.
Real regular.
'Cause that's the trick. You got to do it every weekend.
Mhm.
And they got the best equipment.
Yeah.
You know, it takes good equipment this day and time.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's some parts of it I'm not sure that all of us even know. You know, I'm not sure how much equipment's out there that maybe some of us ain't got to see yet.
Right,
It may not be.
right.
It may not be. But if it's not, boy, there's all of a sudden there's a whole lot of people got awfully good packages.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sure you've had some help along this journey in drag racing in both stock and super stock and bracket racing, and not to mention sponsors. So who would you like to thank? Well, Miss Judy?
Well, back in the old super stock days, we had Music City Rod Shop as a sponsor. Bob Amos owned that business. And we had Tennessee Speed Sport and Big Dave.
Big day.
Can I comment there?
Yeah.
They were both great and a lot of help. They knew how to get
Yes.
you built.
Yes.
Go ahead, I'm
yes,
sorry.
They were. They were. And, well, we had a lot of help, engine building, whatever, had to be done. But race engine design, Jim Hedrick, he was
Cotton Perry's partner, wasn't he?
Oh,
Pocket Rocket.
oh, pocket.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And Cotton Perry is still living.
Yes.
What about Jim Hendricks?
No, he's dead.
No,
Okay.
no, he's passed away. And we had Tommy's Machine, Tommy Hogue.
I remember Tommy, Springfield. Tommy. I think Tommy run a Chevy too.
Yeah.
Didn't he?
Yes.
Yep.
Let her go ahead and I'll take it.
All right, Tim Davidson.
Okay, now stop. Tim Davidson and Tommy Hogue had that car together.
Yeah.
Tim worked for Tommy.
Yeah.
Tim
Mhm.
Davidson did a lot of homework for me
Okay.
on my superstock stuff. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Steve Mabry. Jimmy Smith, he's a real good friend of ours. He was one of the good old guys that when Tucker was on his way back and forth from Alabama or wherever, picking up parts, motors, whatever it might be, he might be at our shop at midnight out here helping Tucker, you know, till daylight. You know, you never knew. But he was always real good help. J.R. Sosh.
Those two guys ran around together. If
JR.
I was J.R. Sock.
Well, I remember JR real good.
Jimmy and him were best friends. Jimmy has got the Firebird J.R. had at one time right now.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about now. Kind of short,
Yeah.
heavy set boy.
They-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give y'all
Yeah.
an example to how important I say people are that help you. I've seen both of those guys know I was in Alabama picking up. I got off at 2:30. I could be in Alabama before 6 o'clock and I could be back here before 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I've had them more than one time. Both of them standing here waiting on me to get here at 10 o'clock. We put them over in full daylight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Those are dedicated.
Yeah, I've run across Jimmy somewhere.
He comes to the hill.
He comes to the hill
Son-in-law's
once in a while.
driving his car occasionally now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. And Harry Vineyard, he's always good about dang rear ends
Yeah.
or anything. Harry's a,
Harry's always, like I told y'all earlier, he's always been Harry.
Well,
Yeah.
he was a mechanic for somebody right out there on Charlotte.
yeah, jack of all trades, you know.
He's real good diagnosing
Yeah.
stuff and everything like that. And like I say, he put some of my engines together. You know,
Yeah.
Jimmy Bridges, he did a lot of head work for
we
us.
just did the head work back in the early days.
Of course, Ronnie Treffenstead, once again, and
Best
he's,
partner.
yeah, he was a good partner. Mike Gull, he was a truck driver that worked at Peterbilt. And the truck driving part was running from here to Wisconsin 2 or 3 times when a points meet's been rained out.
He
Or
drove me when I'd been up 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
yeah, he would go. And I mean, he was a driver.
You may remember him. Him and Cordell had an old car back years ago called Hully Gully.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's who it was. Yeah. And he, you know, just a real small fella. I mean, he wasn't very big at all,
Yeah.
but he was a lot of help.
I trusted him. I never had him go to sleep on me, and I'd like be up 2 or 3 days before we'd leave or something. And I couldn't drive him. I mean, I'd been gone as long as I could go. I was working at the plant all the hours I could get, coming home working on that thing all night, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I got this big scar right there now, I'm sure,
Let's see, Don Wolf, he was always a lot of help.
He was a truck driver. I think I told that
Yeah.
story a while ago.
Yeah. Sometimes he would get us out of, after we worked all week and been up all day and tried to drive all night to get somewhere 15 hours away from here. And we all kind of traveled in a group. There was a whole gang of us.
Yeah, I think I may have heard some stories. Did y'all ever try to race coming back from Florida or something to get back?
I don't know who you're going to let see this. I don't want the law.
Yeah, I think David Hill, Wallace's Hill's son, was telling me some stories about you guys back
Yeah.
We did that
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you, one of the most, I guess you'd say, not current, that's not the right word, but we did it quite often, was be down like Huntsville or somewhere racing, coming back on Sunday night or whatever. They had me, goddamn, Bobby Vaughn had a 428 and a Ford pickup, and that thing would run 110 with a car behind it, I think. And I had a 454 ramp truck, and about 80, my ramp truck get the vapor lock and it missed.
Yep.
One time I had 3 electric fuel pumps on that ramp truck. I was going to stop that thing from
Well, it
vapor.
was kind of like my first Suburban with a 454, and it would vapor lock. I finally put a race car cool can on that thing and would put ice in it.
I just kept putting more electric fuel pumps to it.
And a lot of times Tucker, it'd just be me and him, and he'd get in the back seat of the truck and go to sleep because he'd been up for a day and a half.
Could you drive that ramp truck? Did you?
Yeah.
She drove both of them. The stick truck, the 70 model I had single cab, she had a grandma transmission.
Yeah.
And she could drive it, but I had to shift it for her, and I'd just fall over in her lap and sleep whenever I put it in high gear. And it had 2 fuel tanks. It'd go from here to Gainesville, Florida without stopping.
Oh, man.
And she'd get to holler and run and wake me up because I had to switch right on the edge of the front seat to switch tanks. She said, change tanks, I'm out of gas.
See, I couldn't. I was so short that I couldn't reach it, and I had to see where I was going. So if I reached down to move the gas lever, then I couldn't see where I was going. So, and then the truck would be going, jumping, running out of gas, And then Tucker would wake up, what's wrong with this truck? I said, we don't have any gas left. Let's see. And also Larry Pritchett. He was always real good about, you be at the races and you have a carburetor problem or some other kind of problem come up, he would always lend a hand to help you out. Always. And I'm sure there are many, many more.
Well,
And it's hard to remember all this history for 61 years. And we really, really appreciate everybody's help. Lots of great memories that we have, and a lot of friendships. And Chris and Sherry and Haley, we appreciate them. They encourage us to race. And we just hope all future drag racers will enjoy the ride that we've had. It's been wonderful.
They do the bracket. That's more of a combo pick.
There's a combo in the Superstock people.
We just got too much history.
Oh, yeah. I mean, after 61 years.
Goes on and on.
It's different. I mean,
Just think of how many people you've
some
seen
of these people
come
are
and
going to
go.
be the same,
Oh, I know.
but it's a little bit different. This is current stuff because I'm bracket.
Right.
The combo stuff has pretty well been cut off as we went into bracket racing. I still love combo,
Oh, I do too.
but I don't have the finances to do it the way I would want to do it, and the bracket car probably don't have the finances.
Probably don't have the finances for that either.
As I went through the past week out here, y'all have seen all the broke parts laying out there. Okay. First off, again, if we're separating this, I'm going to call these guys that's really been important in bracket racing to me. They helped me out a lot. First 2 on the list, Matt Tennant, John LaBouche Jr. They would, I don't know how to state it, but that car wouldn't be what it is without Matt's knowledge and John pushing him to make it work. Last 2 times, I think I told you, the last 2 times out, that car has went 619 4 shots in a row. The very next week, it went 618 4 shots in a row, and then something happened. It broke everything under it after that.
Well, that's what Kip was telling me last week. He goes, "You got Tucker this round." And I was like, "Oh gosh." He goes, "He's been 319 so far."
And those guys. Matt's is sharp. He worked for Gary Jennings when he was in high school. Gary was a really, really good fabricator, suspension guy. Matt picked up what he was supposed to pick up. He's good. The next that I'd like to say something about, when I first bought this car, it had been sitting in a museum for, you may tell me, good 20 years or something in Portland.
Yeah.
And Brandon Frame and Peanut did the motor in it 20 years ago.
Oh, did they?
Oh, wow.
I went to them to try to find out something about it. Well, first thing Peanut tells me, he said, it's very hard to remember because we did that motor in that car when we were still on Gallatin Road. And he said, we've been on Ashland City Highway 14 years. But they both chipped in. Brandon and Peanut was very helpful. We got the motor freshened. And it did a good job until it expired last year. And it wasn't their fault.
Yeah.
The women didn't give up in the block. They were a great help. Along about the same time, which I've known this gentleman all my life through the combo days. Me and him ran the same class a lot. Donnie Neely.
Yeah.
They had a Chevy 2 wagon, at the same time I did, and Donnie has been great help with me at bracket racing. He has come out here a time or two to work on his car, something I knew nothing whatsoever about. I think after Brandon and Peanut freshened it, oil pressure was real goofy on it. And they got Donnie to come out here and pull a pan off,
Yeah.
But anyway, Donnie, I can call him right now. If he's had a lot of health issues, but I can call him right now. And if he feels like it, he'll be out here this evening to look at a problem for me, and I appreciate that, The next guy, don't know if y'all know him or not. He's kind of new in my life. I call him the electronics man. He does all my wiring. If you need something wired changed, it ain't supposed to be doing this or that or the other. He does all of my wiring. It's Joey Davis. He owns now a black S10. Y'all probably seen it at the hill. He don't come very often. He struggles to go down the track because he's got little tires on it. And he used to own, I think it's a Motorola store here on Mike Drive. Put radios and whatnot in police cars and all that type of stuff, Yeah. He has in the last couple of years sold that business, but he didn't sell and get far enough away. I know where he lives, so I go get him up. He's really good in electronic stuff.
Yeah.
So I need that bad because, I know nothing about electronics. Another one, I'm sure y'all know this guy, Scott Wright.
Yeah.
He's got a shop out here that I visit quite often. He has helped me on different things. If I need something made or whatever, he's a pretty good fabricator and all that kind of stuff. Orders parts for me, this, that, and other. But I just like to mention Scott as being helpful on this bracket cars.
His dad was the announcer at
His dad was the announcer at Union Hill.
He was real good too.
He's a big combo fan. His dad was.
Yeah.
Well, Scott's 2 children both race.
Oh, did
and his daughter, runs a superstock car. So that makes me stay interested and I say, how's she doing?
Yeah.
His son has a dragster and bracket races and he's always comes around and talks or whatever. So I keep up with them a lot. I love to see young generation people coming into the game, because at times you get to look at, well, where are all these old people coming? Why are they all old people out here?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's with them. The next, I'm going to tell these guys in a pair is Gene Steele and Lynn Hines. Lynn was Gene's helper. They pretty well are retired now, but I can usually get them to do some little fabrication or Gene lined the front end up on this thing for me with tape measure when I first got it and just odd and end stuff like that. And I'd like to mention them. I ate lunch with them a lot of Mondays.
Yeah.
Next guy, I don't know how to describe him because he goes back to the combo days and now he's retired from his regular job, does a lot of work at home for bracket guys and combo guys. Is Kenny Sherman. when I bought the new engine last year from Scott Shaproff, I bought a short block. Kenny finished it. He put the heads, the cam, and, completely assembled.
Oh, okay.
Come here, when the first time it was started, make sure everything was like he wanted it, Kenny's a great help. I can call him anytime, and if he can't come today, he'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good.
Rob Marvin, where y'all know him or not, got the little black Mustang that Lynn Hines bought brand new.
Is that the one that's real fast now in the 60s?
Nah, he just put a different engine in it this year or at the end of last year. I think he went, what did he go, 650 or 60 or something like that.
Yeah.
He had it real fast when he first bought it. He had those high dollar Ford motors that they go to them Ford races with, and I think that car's been 620s or 30s, with the big motors in it. But small tire, you couldn't hook it up, know. And he got to come into the hill on Friday nights, back when we used to run a lot of Friday night stuff. And always we ended up friends. He parked by us every week. And Judy usually sent me a pork chop sandwich, something we had left over from Thursday night. He got where he wanted one, so he got a pork chop sandwich every week. And he's still, Rob is almost like, what would you call him? An adopted son or something, whatever.
He's a nice guy.
He's asked me if it was okay, and he's informed her what I said. He wants one of the Wallies when I'm gone.
Get in line.
Yeah. And next, I think I brought them up a while ago, Angela Knight Neely. She's about the same as Rob on the girl's side. She's sort of our adopted child also, because I've been around her since she was born.
Yeah.
And then she's married to Tommy Neely Jr. now, and that's got all of us sort of closer. Terry Julian. Terry and I never done a lot together, but when I had open heart surgery in 2010, I think they had told me 12 weeks they would look at letting me go back to racing. Well, that appointment was coming up in 3 or 4 days, so I just went on back to racing 3 or 4 days early. I didn't wait for the appointment. Long story short, first or second shot, I broke an axle in the Corvette. And I thought, that hurt. I'm over here against the left wall, and my chest is still really sore, and the only way out the door ain't gonna open is I got to go through the roof. I had to top off that car. I had to climb over the bars to get out. And I thought, that might not have been a good idea. I don't know. But anyway, where I'm going with this, somebody said something to me about it or whatever. I said, well, I got another axle in the trailer or whatever. Terry Julian, I guess, sort of took over. First round come up, he had my car running. That axle in the trailer was in the car that I had broke, so I always think Terry didn't have to do that. He got me back running in a few minutes. That made my chest feel a lot better. And another time, when I bought this car, you know how the Chevy 2-stop front ends are. It was the biggest mess in the world, Well, I was trying to run a 10-tug race, and Terry got down with the tape measure and got it adjusted close enough I could get down the track without darting and carrying on, So he's helped me mechanically on 2 or 3 things. I'd like, him to mention. Ronnie Maggart, he's the tire man.
Yep.
He's always been real good. If I needed tires, he might not have them, but he didn't. He'd have them tomorrow, So and he's good about mounting and balancing. I can go and I'm too old to mount and balance tires, by hand anymore. So I like to mention Ronnie. Wayne and Jackie Murphy. I know y'all know them. Got the little black 64 shoe too. They're just great friends. Would do anything in the world for me. They park beside of us, and I just like to mention them as being the great friends. Next guy is, everybody kind of probably knows him as a different name, Kendall Langford, better known as Turkey. He's the automatic transmission guru that does all my transmissions. And Turkey's a great guy. I broke his car 2 weeks ago. Y'all probably remember.
Yep.
It broke the case of transmission. I didn't know it. I knew it broke the tail housing. I took him the transmission on Monday morning and carried him a tail housing off of a jump transmission I had. He calls me Tuesday morning. He said, that transmission you took that tail housing off of, you need to bring me the rest of it because I need the center case. The case is busted also. So I 3 trips to Lebanon, he had me fixed, but he got me fixed and I had the stuff back by Thursday,
Yes.
And he works a regular job. He does that at night. Scott Perkins. Y'all may know Scott, Rusty Perkins, his son. He's in the carburetor business, S&P carburetors. He does all my alcohol work. What can I say? It went 4, 6, 18s in a row, 4, 6, 19s in a row. You know, Scott's got something to do with that. I say Scott and Matt made it do that. Matt made it lead. Yep. Scott made it get the adjustments right on the fuel, you know. Todd Sensity. Todd used to park beside of us when we parked down in the lower end down there for a long, long time. I've watched his kids grow up and all. And Todd was always helpful. Anything you needed, he'd fly in. You better get back. He was always flying in. And last but not least, and he probably sorry he lives there, the gentleman that lives across the street over here, Randy Moore.
Yeah.
I can go get him anytime I need him. He comes over here. He'll come over and help me do anything. Great, great guy. And I really appreciate him. But like I say, I probably warm a welcome out and say, I'll call him, Randy, I need some help. He'll be right over. You know, I guarantee you if he's home yet, we can call him right now and he'll be over here if we need him.
Yeah.
But that's basically, like Judy said, she said a good speech a while ago. How many people did we forget? We hope none, but we know we did. We did our best. It's hard to go back over 61 years and remember all this stuff. It really is. Yeah. And especially at my age, you know. Yeah. But that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, Tucker and Judy, after 61 years of never missing a year at Union Hill Drag Strip, Union Hill Raceway, Music City Drag Strip, and now Music City Raceway, what makes y'all keep coming back?
We love it.
Competition. One word.
2 words. We love it.
Hey, Mike, can I come in on it too?
Oh, yeah.
We must love it. The misery.
Put that must in there.
Yeah. The misery and pain we went through.
Yeah. They don't know anything
We don't know anything else. I may have told y'all before, we got married as teenagers. I raised her at the racetrack, so she don't know nothing.
They don't know nothing to do nothing else.
Well, that's true. That's a true fact.
Yeah.
And we both enjoy it.
And
So
we both like it. We like the people.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next, this is my top 10 questions. It's either one or the other. Open face helmet or full face helmet?
Open.
Your turn.
Automatic or 4-speed?
It can't be one or the other. I've done 2 styles of racing. Automatic with a bracket car, stick shift with a combo car.
That's good.
I mean, I hate to mess your question up, but that's a 2-sided question.
2-door or wagon?
God darn it. That's got to be a 1, too.
Yeah. I know you had both.
It's the same. It's almost the exact same answer as what you just said.
We'll just answer it that way.
I'll say 2-door because that's what I got now.
Small tire, big tire.
The bigger, the better.
Small block or big block?
Small block.
NHRA or IHRA?
No question. NHRA.
1/8 mile or 1/4 mile?
I guess I would say 1/8 mile because I have done so much more 1/8 mile racing with 61 years at Music City. I have no problem with 1/4 mile. I think 1/4 mile in one sense is easier to drive the finish line because you have longer to look at it. Yeah. But it also gives you more time to make a mistake.
Right.
Class racing or bracket racing?
That would change over the years. Right now, bracket racing. Because it pays more money.
Yeah. You gotta go where the money's at.
Yep.
And I have to try to win a little so we can go next week.
Yeah.
Favorite track to race at?
What else can I say? Music City. I went back 61 years.
Yeah, Union Hill.
Union Hill.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. Up on the hill.
That's right.
Okay, here's number 10. After 61 years of experiences and being a part of the evolution of drag racing, what can you tell me or future racers who watch this What does it take to turn the wind light on?
A good car and a whole lot of concentration.
You gotta have both.
I feel you do.
Yeah.
Concentration's a whole lot more important than people think it is. They think you just blah, 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 but it's not that way. To me,
Yeah.
I got to study what I'm doing. And I may race you different than I did the last guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
From watching you over the years, and I may have a.
I'm staying away from him in the station lanes. I'm
What-
staying
You don't,
away.
you don't have no trouble with him. You wear him out every time.
Tucker needs to either get in behind you or you
I
need to
waited
get in
last
behind
time.
Tucker.
I waited last time. I said, he's been gone. He's been gone. And then all these cars keep coming.
See
in.
what?
Everybody gets in the left-hand lane.
Well, they're going to call
I'd
y'all.
love to see me over there until I break that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times that gets on you and it'll last. Two might not be nowhere near the end of it.
Right.
But when I turn it around, I'm going to get me some in a row.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I really felt that way. I've raced it a lot. Like y'all
Me and
say,
Tommy Lewis, I couldn't. He'd get to me.
I have raced it a long time, and I know how this stuff comes in droves. I call it.
Yeah.
So he come up there one night when we had to flip for lanes, you know, and I wanted the tire lane. Some guy was with him. He said, "We got to flip for lanes." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I want that lane." So he won the flip, you know. I walked off. I said, "You know, I might just take it anyway." And he said, "What?"
Well, there you have it. Straight from Tucker and Judy Parrish. All you need to know over the last 61 years. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button, and don't forget to comment. DC and
CC.
out. Well, if you're going to be on Legends of Ivy Point Road, you got to have a jacket. This is
Oh.
Judy's, and it has your name on the front, and this is Tucker's with his name and stuff on it.
Oh, you did not have to do
Yeah.
that. Oh, I do too.
Well, now it's summer. No,
Yeah.
no, this is...
That's neat, ain't it?
That
Yeah,
is
part of it.
gorgeous. I love that.
Yeah, they turned out pretty cool. Now you just got to wait till next winter.
Well,
No.
a day or two ago it was winter.
Still be some cool spells up
Yeah.
on the hill, you know.
I might wear this and just sweat. If you see me coming down the staging lanes and I'm sweating and I got this coat
Is
on,
this what will come up when it does? When you try to pull it DC's.
that is
Right.
gorgeous.
That's what you'll have to put in to get
Right,
the show.
the show.
That is gorgeous.